The rain was relentless. It didn't pour, it punished. The kind of rain that soaked through jackets, found its way into boots, and blurred windshields no matter how fast the wipers moved. On the edge of town, past the broken traffic light and the rusted-out billboard for a diner that had shut down 5 years ago, a 1998 Honda Civic sat stranded, its hazard lights blinking like a dying heartbeat. Under the hood stood Daniel Reyes, 38, hunched and soaked to the bone. His flannel shirt clung to him like a second skin, sleeves rolled up as he fiddled with the engine, steam rising in ghostly wisps. His hands were numb, but not from the cold, from exhaustion. Daniel was a single father to Luca, his 6-year-old son with asthma and the softest eyes anyone had ever seen. Every day was a battle, working 12-hour shifts at the local auto shop, picking up part-time delivery gigs, and trying to be both mother and father to a boy who still asked when mommy was coming back. She wasn't. The woman in the driver's seat was a stranger. Late 20s, maybe early 30s, clearly not from around here. Her clothes looked expensive, her nails manicured, and the way she clutched her phone told Daniel she was used to solving problems with a screen, not with a socket wrench. "I really appreciate this," she said, voice trembling as the rain picked up. Daniel nodded without looking up. "Batteries corroded. I've got a spare jumper in my truck." "You don't have to. I got a kid waiting on dinner," he interrupted gently. "So let's just get you back on the road, all right?" She looked down, a little embarrassed. 5 minutes later, her car sputtered back to life. The headlights cut through the curtain of rain like a miracle. "I don't have any cash," she said, voice tight with guilt. "But I can take your number, maybe send something later?" Daniel shook his head, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. "No need. Just drive safe." And just like that he turned and walked back toward his rusting truck, the taillight held on by duct tape, his boots sloshing in muddy puddles. She watched him for a second too long before whispering, "Thank you." Back home, Daniel heated up canned soup on the stove while Luca sat on the floor, breathing through his small inhaler. Their heater had died 2 days ago and the landlord wouldn't pick up the phone. "Daddy?" Luca asked, voice raspy. "Yeah, buddy. Were you helping someone again?" Daniel smiled and ruffled his son's damp hair. "Yeah. Just a car that wouldn't start." "Did they say thank you?" Daniel paused. "Yeah. They did." Luca nodded solemnly. "That's good." Outside, the rain continued, hammering the old roof like angry fists. The next morning, Daniel was woken not by his alarm, but by the sound of whirring blades, unnatural, loud, close. He threw on a jacket and stepped outside just in time to see a black and silver helicopter descending into the empty lot beside their apartment building. His neighbors gathered at their windows, kids pointing, old men squinting. And from the aircraft stepped the same woman from last night, no longer panicked, now composed, calm, and flanked by 2 assistants in suits. "Mr. Daniel Reyes?" she called out. He blinked, stunned. "Yeah." She walked toward him, extending a hand with a smile that held something deeper than gratitude, a mix of warmth and wonder. "I didn't get a chance to properly thank you. My name is Elena Navarro, and I think you may have just changed my life." Daniel glanced back at Luca watching from the window, then returned his gaze to the woman in front of him, the helicopter roaring behind her like a heartbeat about to change tempo. Daniel hadn't been near a helicopter since high school, and even then it was just a field trip to the military base. Now one was parked in the gravel lot next to his rundown apartment, its spinning blades drawing a small crowd, all whispering versions of the same question. Why him? Elena Navarro stood like she didn't notice the spectacle, her coat fluttering in the downwash. She looked out of place in this part of town, like a brushstroke of light in a canvas of rust and wear. Yet when she looked at Daniel, her eyes softened with familiarity. "I was stuck in the middle of nowhere during a storm," she said. "No signal, no help, nothing. And you, a complete stranger, didn't ask me for anything. You just helped." "I didn't think it was a big deal," Daniel replied, squinting into the wind. "Just something anyone would do." "No," she said. "Not everyone would. But you did." Luca opened the apartment door behind him, bundled in a blanket. "Dad, you forgot your keys." Elena's eyes fell on the boy. She smiled. Not the polite kind, but the kind you give when you recognize something fragile and good. "Your son." "Yeah," Daniel replied, taking the keys. "This is Luca." She knelt gently. "Hey there. I'm Elena." Luca gave a shy nod. Are you here to fix our heater? Daniel gave a weak chuckle. That's wishful thinking, buddy. Elena stood and turned back to Daniel. I know this is sudden, but I'd like to offer you a job. Not charity. A real job. Working with my family's foundation. Mechanical expertise, community outreach. Decent pay, benefits. A relocation package. Daniel stared stunned. Why? Because you remind me of someone I lost a long time ago. Someone who helped people without ever expecting anything back. 3 weeks later, Northern California. Daniel had never been on a plane, let alone in a helicopter again. But now he stood on the grounds of Navarro Industries' Rural Innovation Center, surrounded by solar panels, gardens, and rows of workshops. Elena hadn't been exaggerating. His new job came with a 2-bedroom cottage. Clean, warm, safe. The kitchen worked. The heater worked. Most importantly, Luca could finally sleep without wearing 3 layers. He was responsible for maintaining equipment, training interns from struggling communities, and helping develop affordable repair services for underprivileged neighborhoods. He worked with his hands, the only way he'd ever felt honest. Elena checked in often, not out of obligation but because she wanted to. Their conversations stretched, from quick status updates to long talks on benches near the greenhouse. She listened when he spoke. Asked about Luca. Told him about her own past, how her brother, who used to fix cars, died saving a family during a flood in Brazil. She'd never forgotten him. Or what he stood for. Daniel realized slowly that she hadn't offered him a job. She'd offered him a second chance. One night, under the stars, Daniel tucked Luca into bed, kissed his forehead, and stepped outside. Elena was there, sitting on the porch steps with 2 mugs of tea. He sat beside her. You've given us more than I can ever repay, he said. She shook her head. You gave me something. A reminder of what matters. My life had become spreadsheets and strategy. Then I broke down in the rain and you fixed more than my car. He looked at her, quiet. Do you ever feel like kindness is the only thing holding this world together? She asked. He nodded. Every day. They sat in silence, the night air cool but gentle. Then she leaned over and kissed his cheek. A slow, honest kind of gesture. Not rushed. Not romantic just yet. Just real. The days passed gently, the kind of gentle Daniel had never known. Mornings began with the smell of fresh bread from the community kitchen and the sound of Luca laughing with other kids at school. Evenings brought cool breezes and warm company. But just when life seemed to be stitching itself back together, the past knocked. Literally. One rainy afternoon, while Daniel was finishing repairs on a solar irrigation pump, a familiar voice echoed across the yard. Daniel. He turned, the wrench slipping from his hand. It was Marissa, Luca's mother. She looked thinner, worn, her eyes a mix of regret and something else he couldn't name. She hadn't called in over 2 years. No cards. No visits. Just gone, swallowed by addiction and instability. Marissa, he said quietly, standing between her and the path to the house. I heard, she said, her eyes glancing toward the cottage, that you're doing okay now. Better than okay. I was in town. Thought I'd stop by. Daniel didn't move. You left. He cried himself sick for months. I know, she said, voice cracking. I know what I did. But I'm clean now. I'm in a program. I just wanted to see him. Maybe talk. Daniel felt the storm brewing inside him, worse than any rain outside. He's not a project to fix now that your life's settled. He's a boy. A fragile, kind boy who still believes people keep promises. She nodded, swallowing guilt. I'm not asking to take him. Just a minute. Please. That night Daniel sat on the porch again. Elena joined him, her silence patient, her presence calm. She showed up, he said after a long while. Elena didn't ask who. He just waited. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because Luca deserves better than a storm every time his mother's name is mentioned. She might not deserve forgiveness, Elena said gently, but Luca deserves peace. And peace often comes from grace. Daniel let the words settle like rain on parched earth. 2 days later. The cottage. Daniel sat across from Marissa in the small kitchen. Luca clung to his toy robot, sitting between them. It was quiet, heavy. Hi baby, she said. You've gotten so big. Luca didn't say anything. Just looked at his dad. Daniel nodded softly. Are you gonna stay this time? Luca asked, voice small. Marissa teared up. No, sweetheart. I'm not. But I'm trying to be better. And I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the little man you've become. Luca didn't respond, but he let her hug him. And Daniel saw for the first time that closure doesn't always come in full circles. Sometimes it's just letting go of a knot you've held too long. Weeks later, community celebration night. The center hosted a gathering for local families and workers. Music, lanterns, warm food, and bonfires lit up the place like magic. Elena wore a simple blue dress, hair tied back, laughing with children as they raced around her. Daniel watched from afar, marveling at how she brought light into every space. He approached her slowly. You remember that night I fixed your car? She smiled. Hard to forget. I think I fixed something in myself too that night. I didn't know it then. But helping you helped me remember the man I wanted to be. Elena took his hand, fingers threading together. And what kind of man is that? One who believes that good things do come back. Even if they take the long way. She leaned closer, and this time there was no hesitation. They kissed. Slow. Honest. Earned. The seasons shifted gently in the valley. Spring brought green hills, wildflowers, and quiet moments. The kind of beauty you don't notice unless you've been through enough pain to finally stop and look. Daniel had stopped running from his past. Luca had stopped asking if good things ever stayed. And Elena, she had become something neither of them expected, yet everything they needed. A steady presence, a mirror of hope, a bridge between old wounds and new beginnings. A year later, groundbreaking ceremony. The Innovation Center had grown. More workers, more kids enrolled in the scholarship program, and a new wing dedicated to family services and mechanical education for single parents. Daniel stood at the podium, suit slightly uncomfortable but smile genuine. Elena stood beside him, her hand around his. He looked out at the crowd, volunteers, parents, donors, and at Luca, who sat in the front row clapping with wide, proud eyes. Not long ago, Daniel began, I was just a mechanic barely keeping the lights on. A father with a toolbox, a sick child, and more fear than hope. Then one rainy night I stopped to help a stranger. He paused, the memory vivid. I didn't do it expecting anything. I just did what felt right. And somehow that one small act set off a chain of events that changed my life. Our lives, forever. Elena squeezed his hand, eyes glistening. If there's a lesson in all this, he continued, it's that kindness isn't small. It's never wasted. You never know what storm someone's coming from, or what future you're helping build, one gesture at a time. Applause echoed through the hills. Luca stood and ran to the stage, throwing his arms around his father. That evening, the hill above the center. Daniel, Elena, and Luca sat under the stars again, a picnic basket beside them, soft music drifting up from the festival below. Luca looked up. Dad. Yeah, buddy. You think we're lucky? Daniel thought for a moment, then said, I think we're blessed. Luck fades. But love. That sticks. That grows. Elena rested her head on Daniel's shoulder. I used to believe in planning every step. Now I believe in detours. In breakdowns. In chance. He smiled. You believe in broken down cars and wet mechanics? She laughed. Only the ones who turn out to be heroes. Epilogue years later. A small plaque hangs in the lobby of the center. It reads, in memory of the rainy night that changed everything. Kindness is not a transaction. It's a legacy. Dr. Every now and then new visitors ask about the story behind the quote. And someone always tells it. About the man who helped a stranger in the storm and found a future he never expected. A mechanic. A father. A man who gave and in giving received everything.